use your powers for evil.
Evil? Your evil is mine.
Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm Charles Skaggs, and with me in the TARDIS, as always, everyone's favorite Captain Grumpy himself, Jesse Jackson.
Yes, this will be fair warning to our lovely listeners.
Yes.
This will be a Grumpy Jesse episode.
Captain Grumpy.
Yes, I am Captain Grumpy today. Not impressed with this episode, but that makes Charles so happy because 95% of the time I'm Mr. Sunshine and Rainbows, and he loves when it's Grumpy Jesse.
Yes. Well, I feel like I'm more optimistic. I mean, I try to be optimistic.
You are.
But it makes me feel more optimistic when you're less optimistic because I feel like I have to counter that a little bit.
Yes.
So, to provide that balance.
Hey,
But
Charles.
yeah, I was ready. I was ready to kind of get on Jesse's case a little bit because I got an email at 2:20 in the morning last night from a certain Jesse Jackson, where apparently he was all ready to come into class without having done his homework. So
yes, and but I finished my homework.
Yes.
Actually did some research, so I'm ready to discuss.
All right, great.
But before that,
yes,
as I throw a curveball, but I know this is an easy curveball for you to hit.
That's okay. I got my fielding glove. We're good.
Today, as we record this,
my catcher's glove.
We are less than 30 days till new Doctor Who.
That's right, because hey, we're recording. What is today? It's the 9th. The 9th of September, and hey everybody, we finally have a premiere date for Doctor Who, Series 11, and that is going to be on October 7th, which is a Sunday, so everybody used to watching Doctor Who on Saturday, as it's traditionally been. For whatever reason, the BBC is trying to move the show to Sunday, where kind of like a lot of shows, like at least in America, The Walking Dead or Game of Thrones or what have you, tend to air. And Sunday nights have kind of, at least in America, have been more of a, like, that's where your best shows are on. Like Westworld on HBO, et cetera.
Yes,
the water cooler shows. So I'm wondering if that's why, because, like, I know the ratings have been down, but, ratings have been down for television across the board.
Right.
So it's not just Doctor Who. And I think the BBC is trying something a little different. So they're moving it to Sundays. Unfortunately, here in the U.S., that is the exact same night that The Walking Dead Season 9 premieres on AMC. So there's going to be a lot of DVR going on.
And
for this show, one way or the other. Either you're going to DVR Walking Dead or you're going to DVR Doctor Who. I'm hoping you DVR Walking Dead.
Yes, and the Cowboys play that night.
Well, this is a bit of a more local crisis than a national crisis.
Yes, it is. But it's more a specific, how does Jesse
right.
So I'm thinking I need to take a vacation day October 8th so that I can watch the Cowboy game,
catch up on everybody.
Then see the Doctor Who, because there's no way Chris Jackson is going to be, wait a minute, what do you mean you're watching Doctor Who over the live Cowboy game? I'm like, well, yeah.
Well, spoilers, Jesse, because I've traveled in time and I found out that the Cowboys lose that game, so you don't need to watch that game. I'll save you the trouble.
Yes, I have no doubt.
But
So
yeah, what I also want to mention that while we're on the subject of Series 11 news, that we also got the title for the very first Jodie Whittaker era episode, which is going to be titled "The Woman Who Fell to Earth."
ooh, nice.
And which I think is it's a nice play on the title "The Man Who Fell to Earth."
Yes.
And written by, of course, Chris Chibnall, showrunner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to be watching on October 7th. At least I am. Hopefully everybody else is too.
Yes.
And that'll be the very first episode of the Jodie Whittaker era of Doctor Who as the 13th Doctor.
And if we weren't,
Yes.
as we pull back the curtain and produce on the air, if we weren't already having the challenge of now then there's going to be 3 people in the TARDIS.
Yes.
Because the lovely and talented co-host Karen is joining us.
Karen Lindsay, yes.
Yes.
From my co-host on the Phantom Zone podcast, which is currently on hiatus.
Yes.
Because.
And my former co-host of Storming the Castle and the Farscape podcast.
Right.
So we're already going to have to work on 3 people's schedule.
Right.
And now then, we usually do Sundays because the Doctor Who comes on Saturdays.
Right. We're usually recording about Sundays at noon, my time, 11 o'clock a.m.
Yes.
Jesse's time.
And that gives you time to watch it at least twice. Because
Right.
I historically watch it live
Right.
immediately, and then I usually either stay up late, watch it a second time, or usually in the morning I watch it again taking notes. So now that it's like, okay, we're going to have to figure out all this timey-wimey because we don't want to wait too long to get the episode
No,
up.
no, not at all. So, and as I posted to you on Facebook, thankfully there are 6 other days in the week.
Yes.
So we'll figure something out.
We will.
But
so excited.
I'm available like all the nights. I could always figure out something. Normally Thursdays are bad because every other week I'm recording Ghost with Sam Sprouse. But apart from that, the weeknights are usually pretty good. So
I think we'll just have to understand that we're going to have to DVR a show that normally we would have watched live on either Monday or Tuesday night, just so we can get this in.
We also got another curveball because poor Karen is in the hospital with kidney stones, or at least she was.
I saw that.
Apparently, I think she's out of the ER now.
Yeah, sending her good thoughts. Truly one of our favorite people in the world, and so we're wishing her well.
So we're hoping that Karen will be on the mend and have her setup all ready to go, that she's still waiting on apparently, for the premiere on October 7th. So,
absolutely. And yes. Also, it is. I wanted to ask, and then we're going to go to Tommy and the Rani. Yeah. The more I see Jodie Whittaker do promotions to talk about the little snippets, the more excited I am. I think I'm even more excited than I was with Capaldi.
Right.
And I was pretty excited about a new Doctor, but I just am feeling so good about this and just so optimistic that I just think this is going to be genius. What are your thoughts?
Hoping. Everything I've seen, including that bootleg footage that was on the internet for all of maybe less than a day.
Yeah, I didn't get to see it.
I did, and there were a couple scenes that I saw her in presumably from The Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
And I liked what I saw. Good. I was very encouraged by Jodie Whittaker. She talks like Christopher Eccleston, in my opinion, but she acts like Matt Smith's 11th Doctor.
Good.
More.
That's a good combo.
Which I think is a pretty good combination. So I know there's, obviously you've got a lot of people just hating the idea of a female Doctor.
Boo,
which seems to be just ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
But, that here we are in 2018 and we still can't get over the idea that an alien could be played by a female.
Yeah.
Especially of a race that has been established by the Stephen Moffat era to be able to change genders. So.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. But whatever. Yes. So, just that we'll have I think there's things to be encouraged about, bottom line.
Absolutely. So. And that also means, much like with Lost, when once they had an end date, it was easier for them to figure out how the roadmap.
Right.
We have an end date now,
yeah.
So we have a much easier time for you to figure out a premiere date of when. What I mean, an end date of filler episodes. I hope you don't filler filling, but that are, we're trying to do.
No, we're just as we reverse the polarity. We're back. Yeah. We're going back to Doctor Who's history, or like we could take side trips to like the Sarah Jane Adventures, which we talked about doing, or more Big Finish audios,
right?
Because there's loads of those that we have not talked about. So, even the show was presumably be over by December, around December 9th, I'm guessing, and then we'll probably have the Christmas special, and then we'll have a bit of a break again. So,
absolutely.
But like I said, there's plenty to talk about. Doctor Who's going on. If you can believe it? What is it here? Let's see, 60. So we're going on 55 years of Doctor Who now, and so we'll have the big 55th anniversary this year in November 23rd. So got to plan for that as well.
And we also got word from BBC America that they are doing a marathon of episodes. They're going to show every modern episode, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, the 13 days before Jodie Whittaker's first episode. So we're getting Doctors 9 through 12. Christopher Eccleston returns to the mix after being gone for quite a while. But sadly, no classic era Doctors or even Paul McGann's TV movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is. So they've been showing some Tom Baker episodes, and they've been showing the occasional restored animated episode like The Power of the Daleks or Shada, but no classic Doctors, which I'm a little disappointed by. Not unsurprised.
After watching this one,
yes,
I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh,
as
Grumpy, there you go again.
Transition to our entree of this episode. So, Charles, take it away.
All right. So here in episode 117, we're going to talk about Time in the Rani. And this is thankfully the last story written by Pip and Jane Baker, directed by Andrew Morgan. And this was the first serial from season 24 in 1987, featuring Sylvester McCoy's debut as the Seventh Doctor, and along with companion Bonnie Langford as Melanie Mel Bush, and the ever-screaming Melanie Mel Bush, and features the return of Kate O'Mara as the Rani from her previous appearance in The Mark of the Rani, the Colin Baker story from season 22.
Which we did talk about.
Which we have talked about before. So, so we talked about The Mark of the Rani, and here this is her return as the Rani. And Kate O'Mara, if you're a Dynasty fan from way back in the day, you might recognize her as Joan Collins' sister on Dynasty. I believe she was her sister on that show.
I believe you're right.
And and we also have some notable cast members I want to mention real quick. Wanda Ventham, who played Faroon, the kind of older Lacertian. She played the characters Jean Rock in a Patrick Troughton story, The Faceless Ones. And she also played a character named Thea Ransom in a Tom Baker story, Image of the Fendal. But more recently, you might know her as Sherlock Holmes' mother on the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock series.
Oh, I did not make that connection.
Yeah, that's true. So Sherlock's mom is in Time of the Rani.
Nice.
So there's your little bit of trivia that you can impress your friends with, hopefully. Be very geeky friends, but you can still impress them. Donald Pickering, who played Bayes, the kind of collaborator in this story, he previously played a couple of characters. Ison in the William Hartnell story, The Keys of Marinus, which I believe is like the 6th story ever on Doctor Who. Captain Blade in, yes, The Faceless One. So two actors returning from the same Patrick Troughton story, The Faceless Ones in this story, which I thought was kind of neat. And Richard Gauntlet, who played Urak, the head tetrap, the kind of conniving, ambitious one. He played a character named General Macrothon in a Big Finish audio adventure with Peter Davison's Fifth Doctor called Three's a Crowd. So
Good.
Just want to mention those real quick. So little Easter eggs for the Doctor Who fans, diehards out there. And obviously this is a very controversial story, not so much as the Twin Dilemma, which, again, we've talked about, has been widely regarded as pretty much the worst, although it's not my worst. My worst is Love and Monsters, then the Twin Dilemma, I think. But Time of the Rani does not rank highly up there. It's toward the bottom, as Jesse has mentioned. One of the reasons for that is because Pip and Jane Baker, when they were assigned to write this story, they had no idea of who was going to be playing the Doctor. And they had no idea of how the Seventh Doctor's persona was supposed to be characterized. So, because, surprise, this show had no script editor at the time until Andrew Cartmel came in a little later. And so consequently, they're kind of fumbling around the dark, which is made even worse because Pip and Jane Baker are not exactly the best Doctor Who writers. And as a result, you get the Seventh Doctor kind of doing these malapropisms, where he would kind of confuse certain, idioms and whatnot. And thankfully, that wasn't that goes away after this story, so it doesn't feature at all in the rest of his run, which is a good thing, in my opinion. But it explains some of the erraticness and kind of scattershot storytelling, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess we can cut them some slack that they didn't know who was going to be the Doctor,
Right.
But it's just not a very good story. I actually thought at least the Doctor misspeaking, getting common English, American Earth, I guess is the right phrase.
Yeah.
Earth phrases wrong. At least had a little bit of charm to it. That was one of the best things I liked about the episode. And so when you hear that that's not, continues on, I kind of go, oh, that was one of the few things I liked about the episode.
Yeah. Now, Sylvester McCoy is known, he has a background in physical comedy on stage. And so as a result, you see a lot of that here, which once they get it, Andrew Cartmel comes in and helps figure out the Seventh Doctor's persona. That settles down a bit. But, of course, it's McCoy. And a lot of things that people find charming about McCoy is that he is a physical actor and, of course, has this Scottish brogue. And as a result, he's actually become one of the more likable Doctors for a lot of fans. Not so much for Jesse.
If you say so.
Not for – yes, I do say so.
Okay.
I think Doctor Who fandom will back me up on this.
Okay.
So Captain Grumpy is certainly entitled to his opinion.
So as they say,
I respect his opinion, even though he's wrong.
1 million Elvis fans can't be wrong.
Right.
So I guess 1 million Doctor Who fans can't be wrong.
Right.
But I will stand by overrated. Continue.
Yeah, you're going to get some hate mail for that.
That's okay.
All right. At least he's willing to own it. All right. So let's dive into the story a little bit. I do have some topics, just real simple ones this time, with a very obvious theme. First topic title, She Blinded Me with Science. Boo, boo, boo. And that, of course, reference to the Thomas Dolby classic from the 80s, She Blinded Me with Science. And this is the Seventh Doctor and Mel I want to talk about. The Seventh Doctor, who, hot on the heels of his regeneration from, as we found out when we discussed the Brink of Death, which was the Colin Baker Big Finish audio to explain his regeneration that was never filmed because Colin was fired from Doctor Who and refused to return for the regeneration. So consequently, we start off with Sylvester McCoy wearing a Colin Baker wig, and it doesn't come off very well, in my opinion.
It does not.
There's a kind of a swirling effect over his face. But yeah, you can tell it's McCoy in a wig for one. But again, it's understandably, I think Colin Baker was feeling a little hurt, and I can get why he chose not to return, refused to return for the regeneration. Although from what I read, apparently Colin Baker was willing to return if he was given an entire third season to finish off his era of Doctor Who. And at that point, the production office apparently stopped calling him.
Yeah.
As I understand things. So opportunity lost, but so I can't really fault Colin Baker for feeling, because he was so casually and unceremoniously sacked from Doctor Who. So I want to talk about the McCoy as just after his regeneration, and where the Rani immediately slips him a Mickey which gives him amnesia on top of it. And there's some confusion with his companion Mel because, hey, the Rani's kind of like disguised as her, rather comedically. And whacking this
comedically?
Well,
in
attempted comedically.
Right.
Whether execution, that's to be debated. Although some of our listener email, and we got a lot of listener email this week.
Oh, I realize I'm in the minority, but I think that just looked silly.
Yeah, well, again, this is the 80s, so and again, it was very low budget Doctor Who because the BBC controller Michael Grade was doing everything he could to sabotage the show and kill it.
Yes.
So, all right, so I want to talk about Seventh Doctor and Mel.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts on Sylvester McCoy? I'm guessing you have some rather harsh opinions of Sylvester McCoy.
I'm sure he's a very fine man. I'm
right.
sure I'm every doctor has their fans.
Mm-hmm.
I did not find him memorable.
Right.
Just the guy.
Okay.
And if there had been fandom, online fandom, and if we were doing this podcast real time back then,
right,
I would have been I think I would have been someone saying, Doctor Who has outlived its freshness, and we just need to put it out of its misery.
Right.
That's how bad this episode was to me.
Okay.
I felt like it was and this is unfair, and I get that, but toward the end of Castle, we had talked about show just doesn't seem to be working, and it's perhaps everyone moves on.
Right.
After 24 seasons, I feel like this is it's time to move on. And I realize there's a whole set of fandom that would say, no, even mediocre Doctor Who is better than no Doctor Who at all. But I just would have thought it seems tired. I didn't like Mel at all. I didn't find her bringing anything as a companion. She's not the plucky sidekick. She isn't funny. She's just there. It's just a guy and a gal having a show, and the story wasn't that interesting. So this was bland all the way around, and it truly, and then when you try to stretch it to 2 hours,
Well, an hour and a half. It's an hour and a half long total.
25, 25, 25, 25.
23,
So,
23, 23,
okay.
23.
I'm just saying it's a 2-hour movie. Okay, it's a 90-minute. All right.
Yeah.
It felt like 4 hours.
Okay.
This is absolutely painful.
All right. Well,
Back to
don't
you,
hold
Charles.
back. Don't hold back, Jesse. Why don't
Exactly.
you tell us how you really feel?
Exactly.
So as Jesse drops the mic on that, okay. So for an alternate opinion about this, Sylvester McCoy. I think Sylvester McCoy had a stronger debut than Colin Baker did, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
That's a very, very low bar, Charles.
I agree.
Okay.
But
just wanted to make sure.
And like I said, I've made no assertions that this is a great episode. It's not a great story.
Yeah.
But I think that overall, Sylvester McCoy's Doctor comes off a lot more likable. For one, he's not strangling companions and isn't acting cowardly. If anything, he's just kind of sulky because he's he doesn't know what's going on. He's frustrated more than anything in this story, at least at the beginning, until he starts getting his memory back a little bit. And the Rani, of course, is not making things any easier. Thankfully, he sheds that Sixth Doctor costume, although he's in it for quite a bit in this story, until he finally gets back to the TARDIS and kind of regain his sense of haute couture once again. And McCoy, at least to me, and he is charming. I think I like the fact that he has an energy about him. He certainly a contrast to Colin Baker's doctor, Colin Baker's doctor, and that he seems like he's, there's more going on in his head. If you watch his expressions and, his performance, that the wheels are turning. And as we find out later in McCoy's run, his doctor's persona is more of a manipulator, a chess player. And so, he's constantly calculating things. And thankfully that comes through more in his later stories. But here in this story, you kind of get the first glimmers of it. And, there's scenes where, he's obviously not taking himself seriously. He's playing spoons with some little spoon-shaped tools that he's using, and just showing off his stage comedic talents a little bit here. And so he just provides this great contrast against Colin Baker's doctor that personally I found refreshing back in the 80s when I'm first watching this for the first time.
But if you compare him to Baker, or Davison, it's not even close. I mean, it is a pale shadow of what this great series was.
That's more the production values and the writing, in my opinion. I don't think it's the fault of the actors. I think it's the fault of the material that they're given.
And absolutely it could be, but as a whole, unfortunately, you don't grade an episode.
Right.
It's totally. And I'm not saying that, I know there's a lot of people that say, that have criticism of Capaldi's era. Right. Because of the poor writing. Now, I don't feel that way at all. I still feel like, in fact, I think Stephen Moffat, to a little bit, tried to be less clever these past couple of years. This whole, with Matt Smith, the timey-wimey, trying to make everything
intricate.
Intricate. Yeah. But, I just don't know. And that could be very well that both Sylvester McCoy and Colin Baker just did not get decent writing, and so therefore there wasn't much they could do. Right. But it just didn't work for me at all.
Right. Well, that's okay. And as for Bonnie Langford as Mel, Now, Mel, on the other hand, I feel was very poorly handled as a companion. All she does is scream for the most part, and she screams rather loudly, and in this episode, rather constantly. And even to the point where even Icona, the Lacertian that's kind of paired with her in this story, is making a couple of jabs at her about how kind of annoying she can be. And now, thankfully, Bonnie Langford is better served, of course, on Big Finish audios in recent years. But here, she's essentially a very single-note character where she has a lot of big red hair and she screams a lot and she runs around in leg warmers. And that's essentially her personality, which is pretty much zero for the most part, even though she has her character when the character was introduced as having this big, like, okay, she's a computer expert. So, okay, that would be helpful in certain stories. But again, with the writing, that's never shown to us.
Oh, now I disagree, Charles.
Yeah.
Because there's a point where the doctor says, "Hey, Mel,
Yeah.
you're the computer expert. Help us with this." I'm like, God, what horrible writing.
But again, it's forced. It's bad dialogue.
Exactly.
And forced writing. So,
and I'm being sarcastic with you. Because it's absolutely true. I mean,
so
I know.
There was potential there with Mel, but it's because the writers were just so clueless about what to do with her, and it's consequently why 3 stories later, Bonnie Langford's Mel is written out of the series and Ace is brought in.
Yeah. And
who becomes one of the great Doctor companion pairings in Doctor Who history.
And I think we've watched a Seventh Doctor and a Ace episode.
We've actually watched 2. We've watched Remembrance of the Daleks, the 25th season, and we've watched The Curse of Fenric from the 26th.
And I know that I wasn't as sold on Ace as much, but I don't remember disliking the companion, this duo as much as I did this one.
Right.
So,
yeah. And both of those stories are definitely better than Time of the Rani, granted. All right. So now, because I mentioned that we have a lot of email to get to, I want to move along. So I want to talk about our second topic, The Scientist. And that's a reference to a Coldplay song.
Okay.
So obviously you can get that science is the theme here this week. And this is the Rani I want to talk about. So the return of the Rani here, Kate O'Mara having much, much bigger hair in this story than she did in Mark of the Rani. But hey, it's the 80s. Big hair was definitely in.
And I will tell you, Charles,
she's rocking the nose stud in this episode.
I think part of that 80s hair is distracting.
Yeah.
The opening credits, terrible. Terrible. And the logo, you're like, what? It looks like a really bad Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, I want to get on that because while you mention it, those new opening credits that we get with this story, they have a theme by Kef McCulloch, who has I kind of like his theme music because I like synth music. I like new wave.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the theme.
It appeals to me. But it's also the very first story where we have CGI in the opening credits. So this is kind of Doctor Who attempting to kind of raise its game, at least in the credits, a little bit.
Yes.
Where we have CGI. I think it's for 87, it's actually pretty impressive with the TARDIS swirling around in this globe in the credits, and then you have all the letters coming out of nowhere. Now you could debate about whether you like the logo or not. I get that. It's not my favorite of the logos. It's not my least favorite, but I get that some people don't like that particular logo, and that's okay. Yeah. I'm okay with that. But yeah, just it was very bold and it was striking, and I like the fact that we had a pre-credits sequence with the Rani where she kind of walks into the TARDIS after the TARDIS is bombarded by these by pew 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 laser beams, which, as we found out in The Brink of Death, the radiation is what kills Colin Baker's doctor. God, I keep saying daughter. Colin Baker's doctor. instead of him just hitting his head on the console like we thought for a good number of years until thankfully they came up with a much better explanation for why his doctor was killed.
Yeah, but the TARDIS could just be shot down like a normal spaceship. Oh,
Well,
that's horrible, Charles.
Well, not really, because the Rani is a Time Lord or / Time Lady, and presumably she would know how to bring down a TARDIS, right?
Okay.
She's a scientist. She is from Gallifrey.
Oh, she's an evil scientist.
Yes, she's an evil scientist. Well, no, the way she sees it, she's just an amoral scientist.
Okay.
But yeah, but she does kind of veer off to evil. But yeah, but she would know, I think, how to bring down a TARDIS if she wanted to. I don't think is unfair. And then she waltzes in going, leave the girl. It's the man I want. And just, and then we cut to the doctor regenerates, and then boom, we're into the credits. And I thought that was a pretty decent hook and definitely a change of pace from previous Classic Who, where they just play the credits and then we're into the story.
Okay.
So there's actually a teaser there, which I liked. But the Ronnie's plan in this one, as we find out, and as you really had a problem with in your email at 2:20 in the morning last night, her plan is that she kidnaps all these scientists from time and space to help figure out, to kind of create a kind of like a Gestalt mind, so that she can figure out how to destroy strange matter and use it as to achieve her scientific goals. So that she wants to that brain is essentially converted into a time manipulator, and the Rani wants to use it to change the course of history and control the randomness of evolution throughout the universe. That's her plan. And granted, it's a little involved, but as we saw in the Twin Dilemma, it's not that involved as far as like trying to move planets across the universe to launch eggs throughout space. So,
yeah.
So I want to get your thoughts on the Rani and what you thought about her evil plan.
I am not a big. I remember not being impressed when we saw the first episode, and because we had the Master and the Rani, and I remember going, okay,
you're talking the marker,
yeah,
Rani. Yeah.
This should be, this should be bigger if you're going to have two classic,
right,
and villains team up. I just wasn't that impressed with it, and I'm not that impressed with her this time.
Okay.
Yeah, I just it.
Well, she was kind of like the Missy before Missy, because she's the evil female Time Lord.
Yeah, but she's
the prototype essentially here.
Oh, okay.
Isn't she?
Yeah, no. I mean, she's horrible. She's not interesting. She has no depth. There's no shades of gray.
Yeah.
She's just a mustache twirling villain, except it's a big hair flipping.
Yeah.
There is no depth, nothing interesting about her. It is truly.
I think her penchant for disguises is interesting. Whether you like it or not, it's definitely interesting.
Well, I've already said I thought it was.
And she comes up with this like pretty dead-on impression of Bonnie Langford. That's kind of a parody of Bonnie Langford, which I thought was pretty funny.
Okay.
I mean, I kind of wonder what Bonnie Langford thought of it, because here she is, just this high squeaky voice, all peppy, and that kind of annoying. And I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah. See, I didn't think it was a good impression at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was just dumb.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. So since Jesse's not giving me much to play off of, I'm going to move on.
No, I just my issue is I just fundamentally disagree with everything you're saying.
Okay.
I mean, it is. I don't find it interesting. I don't find it charming. And so there's not much I can say, because I don't want to try to convince you that I'm right.
No.
But
you don't have to. You don't
Yeah.
have to. You're entitled to your opinion. I get it.
yeah, absolutely.
And I respect your opinion.
I know you do, and I respect yours.
Okay.
That's why I'm not saying much, because there's no way to come across this without going,
Okay.
Charles, you ignorant slut.
Yeah.
Throwing back to the Saturday Night Live bit.
You're slut shaming me. That's
yes.
not.
And by the way, for those of you who don't know, that was a famous line of early Saturday Night Live. So I knew Charles would catch the.
It's a Dan Aykroyd bit from Weekend Update back in the day.
Yes, when they would do a point counterpoint parody.
Yes, right. That was his ultimate okay, I'm being checkmated here. So then Dan Aykroyd would go back to Jane Curtin and go, Jane, you ignorant slut.
Yeah,
yes.
I mean Jane would do such this wonderful, for a comedy bit, this
Right.
explaining why she didn't feel the way she felt about a topic, and Dan Aykroyd would just play this horrible person. So,
right.
So
now you get to play the horrible person.
Yes,
All right.
I am. I'm playing the horrible person. I know that I am. I'm horrible.
So you're the mustache twirling villain this time.
I am.
All right.
I am the guy that's saying, put Doctor Who out of its misery, and that's just horrible.
Listeners, what can I do with this? Come on.
know.
Help me out here.
This
All right.
is,
Well, thankfully, I've got some email to.
Okay.
Go to.
We usually have a third topic.
Yes,
So.
the third topic, really quick. Weird science.
Oh,
and
nice.
Of course, yeah. So
I like your topics.
Thank you. Weird science, of course, the Oingo Boingo classic from the 80s, which fits in perfectly with this story era.
Yes.
This is the tetraps and Lacertians I want to talk about. So the tetraps, essentially the giant bat creatures that the Rani uses as her minions to help kind of keep powerful control over the native Lacertians of the planet they're on, and kind of keep them under the Rani's thumb to use as she wishes. And I want to get your thoughts on Urek, the kind of ambitious tetrap, and also just what you thought of Baeus collaborating, and they kind of the kind of a little bit of an exploration about what it means to be a collaborator to keep his people safe. So that kind of moral dilemma that Baeus is in. I'm going to give a little bit of thoughts on that.
Zoom.
Right over
that. Did not
Okay.
catch it. Did
Okay.
not. You know what? You describing that
Yeah.
sounds like an interesting episode. I
And
wish
it was.
I wish I had watched that episode.
Yep.
Yeah, because I didn't catch any of that. I just kept staring at big hair, bad acting, and
that's in the
horrible
story.
makeup.
Yeah.
I didn't catch any of that. And I would say,
Did you at least like the Ronnie's little swirling globe traps?
yes, I
You
did
like
like
those?
that. That
You like
was
those?
good special effects.
Okay.
That looked very cool.
Okay, you like that, especially when that one that melds in, kind of lands on a lake,
Yes,
and it kind of spins around. I thought that was pretty cool.
yes.
And
And
before she gets rescued by a Kona.
yeah,
Yeah.
never
Yeah,
mind.
and-
I'll go to this in a little bit when you say,
Okay.
do I have any final thoughts?
Okay. So, all right. So I guess I had the tetraps, these bat creatures. The Rani, obviously, one of her genetic experiments, and essentially these rather hulking bat creatures. And yes, they're dudes in suits, and they look like dudes in suits, and I get that. But Doctor Who's had worse, so I'm willing to overlook the cheesiness of the costume. At least they don't look like just aliens with bumpy foreheads like on Star Trek The Next Generation. So at least they tried something. The Lacertians
we wish that there had been the kind of character development on Next Generation. This episode wishes it could have had the character description and the depth of storytelling that the Next Generation did in its first season, the crappiest season of the Next Generation. We wish this episode could strive to get that.
Well, I know it's not, Deanna Troi going, pain, great pain, but, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah.
The Lacertians we get kind of various points of view. We get Baeus, the collaborator. We get Faroon, who's trying to kind of moderate everything. And she seems the best of the lot. And Icona, who's paired with Mel and is kind of more the younger, more willing to fight, the more of a resistor to their forced collaboration. And so we got different perspectives in this, and I did kind of like that. And Baeus ends up ultimately sacrifices himself because he figures, well, hey, everybody's going to hate me for collaborating, but I just tried to keep everybody safe. So I'm going to stay here, make sure this brain explodes like it should, and take myself out in the process.
Good.
So, all right. So we'll just talk about that. But, all right. So let's see. Anything else about this episode?
I did think that the Doctor trying on different outfits.
Yeah.
And with the throwback to the past.
Right. You get to see him in his third, fourth, and fifth Doctor costumes.
Really well done. Think that never gets old.
Right.
And it was done really, really well.
Right.
So I like that about.
Mm-hmm. You like the clothes changing sequence.
I did.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I don't know if I love his final, outfit.
Yeah.
But it certainly was better than Colin Baker's once again low bar.
Yeah.
But it at least had something that wouldn't seemed a little more realistic and something that you shouldn't go,
right.
Oh, I hate this.
Yeah. And a little trivia note. If you notice, in this story, Sylvester McCoy wears his red braces, suspenders, over his pullover in this story. This is the last story he does that because ultimately he felt that it gave him more of a beer gut, so he started wearing them under his pullover like people traditionally do.
Yes.
And a little side note, Sylvester McCoy is not a fan of the question mark pullover. Again, this is something that was John Nathan Turner's idea, and he was very eager to get rid of it, and thankfully he was able to get rid of it in the 1996 TV movie.
Yes, I did read that.
Just before he gets shot, and
Right.
Yeah. So, just a little trivia note there. All right, and that's about it.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. All right, Jesse. Do you have any? I'm dreading this, but do you have any favorite lines of the episode?
I do, and
okay. All right.
There is. I liked and I've shared this already. I liked when he misquoted Earth sayings.
Yeah, the malapropisms.
Yeah. Like not one of these, but one of the first lines, he says, "You don't understand regeneration, Mel. It's a lottery, and I've drawn the short plank."
Right.
Always like when the Doctor makes fun of his appearance.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty good line.
Okay, that's good. Along that same line with the malapropisms, there's an exchange I like between the Rani and the Doctor, where she says, "Really? Are you going to be in there much? Are you going to be much longer in there, Doctor?" And the Doctor replies, "Afraid so. More hasta, less vista."
Yes, I thought that.
Which, of course, is playing the phrase hasta la
Yes.
vista. Yeah. So.
Another line,
Yeah.
the more I know me, the less I like me,
Right.
which I was shouting, yes, that's true, doctor.
Oh.
That was a cheap shot, I know. I feel
What is
a little
wrong
bad about
with
it.
you?
Yes.
Shame on you. Oh, my God. Blaspheme. Exchange between Mel and the doctor, where Mel says, "But if you're the real doctor, then why do you look like that?" The doctor replies, "I've regenerated, and I'm suffering from post-regenerative amnesia, as far as I can remember."
That was very clever.
Yep.
Two wrongs don't make a left turn.
Yeah.
And, well, every dogma has its day. Both of them I thought were pretty clever.
Yeah. Now, one of his parting sayings in the end of episode 4, where the doctor and Mel are getting ready to say goodbye to the Lacurtians and they're heading off into the TARDIS. The doctor says, "Well, time and tide melts the snowman." And Melanie replies, "Waits for no man." And the doctor counters, "Who's waiting? I'm ready."
Yes, I thought that was very clever.
Yeah. And that's one of my favorite Sylvester McCoy lines.
Yeah.
I just kind of like, yeah, who's waiting? I'm ready. So,
yeah.
very
What
good.
I didn't like is this is 2 episodes in a row that we're discussing where in a regeneration episode where you have the first episode, they kind of throw a line to the audience, and I just don't know if I like that. Mel says, "You're going to take some getting used to," and the doctor says, "I'll grow on you, Mel. I'll grow on you."
And he does.
Like
he does.
fungus.
Oh.
Mold.
Captain Grumpy.
All right.
So, as we all dread, what's your episode rating for this?
NA.
Non-applicable.
I'm not. I'm just. It's an I.
Okay. Incomplete. Your I for incomplete.
Yeah, because.
Okay, that's fair.
For the very reasons you gave.
Yeah.
The writers did not know who was going to be playing the doctor.
Yeah.
They didn't know if they were going to, have. What is this a regeneration episode? Is this a new introducing the doctor?
Right.
What are we going to do? So I'm going to give this an incomplete because I just don't think that Pip and Jane had enough knowledge, and I don't think they're strong enough writers to get past that.
Right.
So I'm to be kind, I'm going to give it an I, or for incomplete.
I think that's perfectly fair.
Okay.
All right. I did complete the story. I've watched this several times over the years.
Because you like pain?
No. If I liked pain, I would continue watching like the Twin Dilemma over and over again.
Yes,
and Love and Monsters. So I give it this episode 6 spinning globes of death. So that's 2 more than I gave the Twin Dilemma.
Okay.
It's not a great story. I will be the first to admit it's not a great story, but it's not the worst story.
We should watch Love and Monsters in 2 weeks.
No, we're going to watch something else in 2 weeks.
I think we should look at Love and Monsters.
No.
That way we could do the trilogy of the worst episodes ever.
No.
And then I can defend Love and Monsters because I think it is better than either of these 2 episodes.
The Doctor isn't even in Love and Monsters. How can it be a Doctor Who story with no Doctor in it?
Because that is one of the things the Doctor does and the modern Who does. And I would tell you I would rather no Doctor than the appearance of the 2 Doctors we just had.
Yeah. You have oral sex innuendo with a slab of concrete in Love and Monsters.
Yes,
That is not Doctor Who.
Okay.
Doctor Who should not have oral sex gags. I'm just saying. So, all right. So we're I want to kind of cleanse, hopefully, Jesse's palate a little bit. I'm going to reverse the polarity. And we're going to go ahead to 2014 with the story Dark Water. And this was the 11th episode of Series 8, written by Stephen Moffat. And while on the subject of Capaldi and the Capaldi era, so we have the 12th Doctor's companion Clara Oswald talking on her phone with her boyfriend Danny Pink. The line abruptly goes silent, and a stranger picks up and sadly informs Clara that Danny was hit by a passing car and has died. Oh, can even get an on-screen death scene. She struggles with his death for days, and attempting to force the Doctor to change the past, the Doctor offers to see if they can locate Danny in the afterlife and rescue him. The Doctor has Clara link with the telepathic circuits in the TARDIS and focus on Danny's location, which they end up arriving at a strange mausoleum which holds several tanks of human skeletons underwater. They're greeted by Missy, who says she's a Mobile Intelligence Service Systems Interface, MISI, an android receptionist for the 3W facility. Missy introduces them to Dr. Chang, one of the scientists working there, and Dr. Chang reveals that the skeletons in the tanks don't drift apart because they're submerged in a substance called dark water, hence the title, which only allows organic material to be seen, and the bodies are encased in supportive exoskeletons. Now, during all of this, Danny has regained consciousness in an office somewhere and is greeted by Seb, who turns out to be Missy's assistant, who reveals that he's in the Nether Sphere, a giant city enclosed within a sphere. Seb explains that Danny has died and helps him to adjust to this revelation. As Seb and Danny talk, Seb receives word that Clara, with Dr. Chang's assistance, is trying to contact Danny in his afterlife. But so the Doctor leaves with Dr. Chang to investigate the facility while Clara takes the call, asking questions to try to confirm if it's really him. Clara says she'll do anything to be with Danny, but Danny, not wanting her to die to join him in the afterlife, tricks Clara into ending the call. This makes him emotionally distraught, and Seb offers him the option of deleting all of his emotions. So Missy instructs the skeletons to rise and begin draining the tanks. And the Doctor and Dr. Chang return, and as Chang reveals Missy is the facility's supervisor, not its receptionist. So we have a time lady disguising herself as something, ultimately revealed as another, just like in Time of the Rani, ends up killing Dr. Chang. And as the tanks start to drain, the skeletons are revealed to be Cybermen. So Missy shows the Doctor, and this is where I compare it to Time of the Rani, a spherical device in the ceiling called the Nether Sphere, a Gallifreyan matrix data slice with a consciousnesses of the deceased are held. So essentially a gestalt of consciousness, just like in Time of the Rani. So, they are prepared to be inserted into new Cybermen soldiers after their emotions are deleted. Stunned, the Doctor realizes Missy is really a time lady, or Time Lord, depending on your personal preference, having two hearts. As the tanks are finally open, and we continue speculation about whether it's the Rani. A lot of us thought that she might be the Rani at this point. As the tanks finally open, the Doctor races out of the facility to find it's inside St. Paul's Cathedral, which I've been to, by the way, in the middle of contemporary London. The Doctor insists on knowing who Missy is, and she reveals her true identity as the Master. This episode ends with the Cybermen beginning to march on London while the Doctor is horrified.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So essentially, the modern counterpart to Time of the Rani, I offer Dark Water.
Okay, I can see that.
All right. So we do have a lot of mail, and so I probably may need Jesse's help on some of these. Unless you want to hear me read 5 emails.
So I only have Holly's. So
Okay,
why don't you read a couple?
You always read Holly's. How do you always get Holly's and nobody else's? I don't get that.
Because Holly sends it to my personal email, and I never think about checking yes.
All right. I get that.
Copies, and I never go to neverstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com, where all the cool people send their feedback.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll start off. Actually, somebody beat her in the email first. Fred Firestein, a.k.a. Fred Firestein.
Yay, Fred.
Yeah, Fred, who's obviously a listener of the show and also listens to us on the Phantom Zone, and always great to hear from Fred. Hi, Jesse and Charles. Fred writes in.
Hey, Fred.
Thanks for a rundown of the episode as always. He was referring to when we talked about Exit Wounds, the Torchwood Season 2 finale. I wanted to add something about Charles's comment that, quote, TV does not have to be realistic, unquote. And I agree that in particular with sci-fi or comic book dramas, that's the case. We're watching all kinds of impossible things happen. Dramatic tension is great, but so is hope, and the happiness that comes when the heroes win. Using Arrow as an example, aside from all the other issues that people have discussed, right? The thing that made me give up on the show was a lack of hope that they could ever win. It was a constant struggle. We may have to feel lost from time to time, whether for real-world show production or dramatic reasons, but it's not always a good thing. Thanks for the podcast. Looking forward to brand new Doctor Who in a month, maybe? Well, I'd say so, Fred. And so thank you, Fred, for writing in, and thanks for your the kind words about the podcast. I really appreciate that.
We very, very much appreciate it.
All right, so you want to read Holly's?
Yes, I will be gladly.
This is about Time of the Rani.
Yes, it is. Hi, guys. I have to say, out of both of the Rani stories for TV, this is my favorite of the two. The Rani even pulls off a good impersonation of Mel after she doses the doctor with the amnesia medicine. I also love that the doctor was playing the spoons. Mel not realizing that the doctor regenerated, and the doctor not believing that Mel is Mel provided for a few chuckles. I was kind of hoping that the Master would also make a return appearance. I love the interactions that the Master and the Rani had in The Mark of the Rani. All in all, a decent story, and the Rani is trapped yet again with her hench people that she took advantage of. At least they weren't dinosaurs this time. I'm hoping in the near future that the Rani will make an appearance on our TV screen. I have listened to the Big Finish audios, the Rani Elite, and it was a good story. I still have to listen to the Planet of the Rani. I'll wrap it up here. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this story. Holly from Wisconsin. Holly, thank you so much for your update. I hope you weren't too put off by Captain Grumpy talking about how this story is not very good.
You really need to have like a John Hurt goatee when you
yes I did
as Captain Grumpy.
Yes, you
got to have like a fake one you just put on for when you're in Captain Grumpy mode.
Yes.
I've listened to Planet of the Rani, and I really like that story. So yeah, I'd love to see the Rani back. I think she would be very interesting, and especially if the Rani comes back now that we have a female doctor. I think that could be a very interesting. If we can't get, the return, obviously, of Michelle Gomez as Missy.
Yes.
Or wouldn't that be an interesting double threat where we have Michelle Gomez as Missy and the Rani versus the Jodie Whittaker's doctor?
Yes, that would be awesome.
Which should make a lot of like grumpy old white male so-called fans of Doctor Who really upset. Which kind of makes me want it even more. A little bit.
Yes, absolutely. I would love that.
Yeah, I would kind of love to see them twist about that. All right, so I got next we have Paul Beck from Australia.
Yay, Paul.
Always great to hear from Paul as well. Hi, Charles and Jesse. As much as I didn't like Colin Baker's first story, The Twin Dilemma, I still feel sorry for him the way that he was dismissed from the role and Sylvester was hired. I can't blame him for not wanting to do his regeneration scene in this story. Neither can I.
Yes.
Yeah, it's understandable. Doctor Who magazine has this story ranked as the third worst story in the show's history in its last viewers poll, but I don't think it's that bad. Neither do I. It has some good stuff in it, such as Kate O'Mara returning as the Rani. And I love this character, and I wish they would bring a regeneration version into the modern series. Again, I agree with that. The Tetraps were such a bold attempt at an alien species, something the original run had trouble producing on a limited budget. Sure, they look a bit dated today, but back then they were impressive. Overall, I enjoy these episodes. It was always fun to watch a new Doctor for the first time. Always hopeful that you will like them, and then later in their run, finding it hard to imagine someone taking over their role from them. Sending you both my kindest regards, as always, Paul. P.S. I forgot to mention that the Ronnie impersonating Mel was a laugh, smiley face emoji. P.S.S. Whose first episode is next? Or are we going somewhere else? Well, you just have to stay tuned, Paul. I'm going to keep that in suspense just a little bit longer because we got a couple more. Next, we have David K. Proctor, who writes in, I enjoy the Ronnie stories. I like that it's another Time Lord different from the Master. The Gallifrey lot are a kind of cookie-cutter bureaucrats. I see no reason that the modern Doctor couldn't run into the Ronnie. She, like the Master, is fond of being away from Gallifrey. She is at least as smart as the Doctor and the Master. It would be kind of wonderful to get a male Ronnie and a female Missy and a female Doctor in one story, especially if Missy isn't evil anymore.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, so thank you, David. He says, thanks, David K. Proctor. So thank you, David, for writing in. Always good to hear from you as well. And then we have, last but not least, Ken Schaefer, friend of the show.
Wow, Ken sent something in?
Ken sent something in. So,
Yay.
yeah. Yep. So Ken writes in and says, okay, just a couple quick comments about the first Seventh Doctor story. As far as making the show more, quote, watchable, what we make up in better costume, we lose in terrible incidental music. That's the incidental music by Kef McCullough, who is probably my least favorite Doctor Who composer. But I did like his opening theme. And more poor writing from the Jane and Pip.
See, I told you he didn't like them.
No, I know. Well, I get it. You know, a lot of people don't like it. I'm not a fan of their writing so much,
Okay.
but they did not do the series any favors, in my humble opinion. And boy, do I want the Ronnie in a modern era show. That seems to be a rather theme here.
Yes, I agree with that.
Lots of people want to see the return of the Ronnie, and I'm one of them. We have had the Master to death, literally. Ha, see what I did there? We need her back, and her facing up against a female Doctor would be totally cool.
Yes, I agree.
So Ken's with me on that one. Poor Mel got the short shrift as far as companions go. She was sorely underutilized, a lot like Perry. And as much as I didn't like Perry when she was first introduced, she really came a long way, and her, quote, off-screen departure during the trial of the Time Lord was really crappy. Because, she just kind of, she's there, and, it took Big Finish to kind of explain how the Sixth Doctor hooked up with Mel in the first place after the events of the trial of the Time Lord, which was all timey-wimey.
Yes.
So that's it from Ken. So that's all our emails. So thanks to everybody for writing in. We definitely appreciate you, and definitely appreciate all the feedback we got this week. So,
yeah, that is really lovely for such for an episode that you didn't think that many people would want to talk about. To hear them doing that is really cool.
Yep, this is why obviously we need to talk about this story, because a lot of people have some feelings about this one.
Yes.
And see, I have a little support here. So
yes,
a little support for Team Charles. All right. So if you want to be like everybody else who was kind enough to write in, you can reach us at Next Stop Everywhere SMG. Don't forget the SMG at gmail.com. So yeah, Next Stop Everywhere SMG at gmail.com. Or you can reach us on the Twitter at Next Stop SMG. You can reach us there, or you can reach us on our Facebook page, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. We would love to hear from you, and we'll be more than happy to read your comments on the podcast if you send them along to us. We obviously can't read them if you don't get them.
Yeah,
so,
we
funny
love hearing
that works.
feedback.
You know?
Yeah.
Yep. So we'd love to hear from you, and also please give us the likes on our Facebook and Twitter, or follows as needed, because we definitely appreciate those as well. And then, Jesse, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Well, if you want to tell, I guess I could temporarily change my Twitter handle to at Captain Grumpy.
Yeah.
But I'm currently
at least you can change your name to Captain Grumpy,
yes.
but keep your handle. Yeah.
Yes, I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. I am on Facebook, Jesse Jackson in Louisville, Texas. You can hear me on Set Listing Bruce, where I am very seldom Captain Grumpy.
Right.
And
he's always happy talking about Bruce Springsteen. So maybe
yes, I am.
if Bruce Springsteen had been in Time of the Ronnie, it probably would have got a 10. from Jesse.
Oh,
Just saying.
no doubt. If they had used the Bruce Springsteen song, I would have been, If Mel had had a red bandana, around her forehead,
Right.
I would be like, okay, this is it. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. Well, maybe there was a Bruce Springsteen jacket in the doctor's wardrobe room
Yes. Oh,
somewhere. There has
that
to
would
be,
have been
right?
so cool.
Yep. There was.
Now I want to write
Fan
fan fiction. Yes.
All right. So as for me, you can reach me at Charles Skaggs on Twitter or at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Would definitely appreciate that. Or you can reach me on the Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus. Shout out to Karen. Facebook, of course, at Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio. Or my blog of geeky things. Whoop, that was a little low there. I'm going to play that one more time because got to get that in. All right, you. Try that again.
Damn good coffee.
There we go. That's a little better.
And hot.
All right. Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where I talk about all the things we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere, including Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, or all kinds of comic book sci-fi news, news from all the DC Universe shows that's coming up, which, of course, leads me into the other podcast that Jesse and I do for the Southgate Media Group, Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, where, if you notice, Jesse, Doctor Who and Titans premiere the exact same week.
I did notice that, and I said,
so we're going to go
wow.
we're going to kind of go from like, oh, we're just casually recording whenever to like, oh, we have to start recording like 2 shows every week.
Yes, I did think that.
All
I
at once.
did see that, yes.
So we're going to be talking about that here because I believe Titans premieres on like October 12th, I want to say,
Yes.
maybe. So, or 11th, somewhere in there. Later that same week is Doctor Who returning. Also, Ghostwood, the Twin Peaks podcast they do with Zan Sprouse, where we talk about all things Twin Peaks. Or the Phantom Zone podcast, which I mentioned is currently on hiatus because Karen obviously is having various health issues and kitty issues and technological issues that hopefully we'll get those worked out shortly. Hopefully Karen will be on the rebound, and we definitely wish Karen all the best in her speedy recovery.
Absolutely.
So we're definitely thinking about you, Karen, and look forward to you joining us here on Next Stop Everywhere, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what are we going to talk about next time? Well,
Love and Monsters?
No, we're not going to talk about Love and Monsters. We're going to talk about
Love and Monsters?
the Christmas Invasion.
Okay.
The very first David Tennant story, which we have not talked about.
Wow, I would have thought we would have.
We have not. So that's why I want to talk about the Christmas Invasion, because this continues our theme of first Doctor, or first stories for incoming Doctors. And this is the last one we have to do before Jodie Whittaker's. So, yeah, we got to get the Christmas Invasion in.
I think that is perfect.
Jesse will be much more less Captain Grumpy in this story as we discuss it, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
And it is a much better story than obviously than Time of the Rani. So yeah, but David Tennant's first story, and looking forward to that one because we haven't talked about that. So plenty to talk about as we get to watch the Doctor in his pajamas for 90% of the episode.
Yeah, I would have. Like I said, I would have thought we would have done that. So
nope.
I'm very excited about that.
That's what we're going to talk about next time here in episode 118. We'll talk about Love and Monsters at some point, I'm sure.
No, we won't. I know we won't.
We will. We will. In the mood once we'll get in the mood to watch some horrible Doctor Who, and we can watch Love and Monsters. But other than that, thanks for everybody for listening to Next Stop Everywhere. We definitely appreciate you guys, and definitely appreciate all the email. So keep that coming, and we will see you next time for the Christmas.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
I actually have a closing.
All right, give us a closing. I'm sorry.
Despite me being Captain Grumpy, I thought that the 7th Doctor had a good point.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you picking the episodes for us to discuss.
Okay.
And he says there's always something to look at if you open your eyes.
Yep.
And so therefore, I am always happy to talk Doctor Who. It is, I appreciate you letting me be grumpy like once every 6 months.
You're perfectly entitled to be.
Yes. And so thank you so much. And I am so excited to talk the Christmas Invasion. And we're less than a month till new Doctor Who. Less than a month till new Doctor Who.
It's coming, October 7th. So wake the kids, phone the neighbors, and come on back for episode 118 of Next Stop Everywhere. It's going to be a good one. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.